Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Guys, extremely interesting video today. We're gonna react to the Orthodox priest that goes by the name of Father Josiah, and he defends the Crusades and has his own opinion about Islam. So guys, if this is the first time for you seeing my face, I come from an Orthodox Christian background. Yes, I come from the Balkans, grew up in an Orthodox Christian family. However, later on in life, I converted to Islam. Alhamdulillah. Yes, this will trigger many Orthodox Christians. Anyways, I was never a priest or a monk. However, I was aspiring to become a monk. I wanted to live the monastic lifestyle, and I went to Mount Athos indeed, where I spent some time, and I was inquiring into the Orthodox monasteries. So this obviously doesn't make me an expert in Orthodox Christianity, nor am I an expert in Islam. Quite the opposite, I'm just a regular guy. This is why the channel is called Bobby's Perspective. I'm simply reacting to stuff and I'm giving you my 2 cents. Anyways, guys, before we jump into the video, if you enjoy my content, leave me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description box below, especially my new ebook, The Return. There you can read everything about my journey to Islam, starting as an Orthodox Christian and going through the New Age, Buddhism, Hinduism, shamanism, and whatnot, until finally I accepted Islam. Alright guys, and now with no further ado, let's have a look.
When it comes to the history of things like the Crusades, sometimes Christians will get a pretty bad rap, but there was also a practical aspect of trying to take back cities from a pretty massive conquest of Islam all over the world, right? Trying to take back the Holy Land. You just said you want Constantinople back, right? Do you think the Crusades, in their proper framework, not all of them, but generally speaking, what they were intending to do was misrepresented today by historians?
There were 3 major groups involved with the Crusades. The Muslims, who no one invited to come out of the Arabian Peninsula and put swords to people's necks and demand their property. Sorry. That's called theft, and we don't appreciate it. That's fundamental religious commitment, part of Islam. Jihad is not just a matter of spiritual work on the inside. Muhammad did say that's called the Great Jihad, and the lesser jihad is the political military jihad. But in practice, the jihad that Muslims have been most committed to is the violent, physical, political jihad, which is very much happening right now.
Yeah, this is absolutely hilarious. He says that 3 groups were involved in the Crusades, and the first group that he lists is, of course, the Muslims, right? As if they started it. Man, listen, matter of fact, the Muslims were in Jerusalem and in the surroundings for roughly 400 years already before the Christians decided to come in and take over Jerusalem. So if you're talking now about some sort of defensive battle here and the Muslims were first, yeah, they were already established for 400 years before you went there and started the Crusades.
There must be war. God wills it!
And the double standard, of course, is staggering, as always with Christians. I'm really wondering why that is, man. When it comes down to Buddhism, Hinduism, they don't really care at all. But when it comes down to Islam, their blood boils, and they're throwing all kinds of accusations, right? When he talked about jihad, yeah, of course, the Muslims, they're not really worried about the greater jihad. They are worried about the lesser jihad. They're just waging jihad. They're just waging wars everywhere. Just go into Christian wars. You cannot tell me that you truly believe that Christians fought less wars than Muslims. Matter of fact, I have a quick list here, right? Starting with the Crusades. Then after that, the 30 Years' War. Then after that, the 100 Years' War. Then the French Wars of Religion. This is based on Christianity as well. Napoleonic Wars, Christianity as well. And then if you look into the World War I, World War II scenario, what kind of nations were those? Was Germany not a Christian nation during that time? You cannot make that argument, right? And then American Civil Wars. Again, civil wars within a Christian country. And this, of course, doesn't even mention the smaller conquests, such as the Spanish conquest, Anglo-Spanish War, or Catholic Protestants clash over and over again, right? Who cares? It is always the violent Muslims that are just waging jihad.
Which is very much happening right now all over Western Europe, as anyone who knows history knew it would. Are you expecting people who come to the West completely abandon their faith? This is fundamental. You don't fight, you don't inherit in Islam. I used to teach a class at the university, local university.
Okay, so now he's pulling the right-wing card here. It's an invasion, it's a war. Okay, tell me, where is the war right now in the West? Is it the war because Westerners simply don't reproduce? Is it the war because Westerners simply don't believe in Christianity anymore? Is it the war because Westerners abandon their churches and then they're selling them to Muslims? This is a crisis within your own people, within your own faith. Don't blame it on Islam.
Called The Cross and the Crescent, the history of Christian-Muslim relations. And I would always have the kids read the Quran. It's very short. It's nothing like the Bible.
Sure.
I would have them read the surahs, and I asked them to write down
the surahs, exactly. So as if he truly gave the whole Quran. It's just very short, and every child in his class read the whole Quran. I believe you, my friend.
how many times explicit political, physical violence is commanded.
Political, physical.
My calculation is 123 times in a very short book. Maybe it's 119, maybe it's 130, depending on exactly how you read it. If you had, the Quran's not much bigger than your Godly Ambition book. If you had 123 references to physical violence, would you go around the world saying that jihad is not about physical violence?
Right.
I mean, that's such a scam.
Yeah, there he comes with his facts, there he comes with his numbers. I don't know where he finds those numbers. The word jihad is mentioned around 40, I believe 41 times within the Quran. But when it comes down to violence, we did this over and over again here on this channel, but somehow they're ignorant to it. They don't want to hear it. When you compare the Bible and the Quran next to each other, which book is more violent, it's not a comparison. The Bible takes the win. There are over 1,000 of violent passages within the Bible. Should we read a few? Numbers 31:15. And Moses said to them, "Have you kept all the women alive? Look, these women caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. But keep alive for yourself all the young girls who have not known a man intimately." Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorite Bible verses, guys, and this is of course just one. As I stated, there are more than 1,000 of violent and, to be quite frank, with no disrespect, but very perverted Bible passages as well. And you dare to criticize the Quran simply taking verses out of context and complaining about political violence. Yeah, sure.
It's such a ridiculous scam. And the people who quote that and say that just show that they have never actually read the Quran.
Yeah, seems like you haven't read the Quran either, my friend.
If you read the classic Muslim lives of Muhammad, Muhammad himself led minimum 25 raids in which he people
Himself.
Wow. At least 25. That's a minimum. At least 25 raids. And these are people who were not in conflict with him. Jewish and Christian tribes.
Oh.
He just wanted their land. He wanted their stuff. So he took it. I'm sorry.
You should
That's
be.
ridiculous.
So first and foremost, I have absolutely no idea where he comes up with those numbers. Matter of fact, most Jews and Christians lived in peace under the rule of the Muslims. And matter of fact, this is something that we have to say about the state of Jerusalem as well. Before the Christians came, Christians, Orthodox Christians on that note, Jews and Muslims lived peacefully in Jerusalem for many, many hundreds of years before the Western Christians, basically the Catholics, brought that war. Anyways, again, I would like to see the proof here. What is he talking about? There's absolutely no evidence to support his claim. The Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, raided Christians and Jews just with no reason whatsoever. He did that over 20 times to steal their stuff. Give us the evidence.
Absolutely, completely ridiculous. Islam is one of the three parties involved in the Crusades. Having stolen Christian lands all over the most precious areas to us, all over what is today Lebanon, Syria, Israel, Egypt. They took those lands from us without asking. Not nice. Not nice. And they give us options, right? You can die.
Or pay the jizya.
Pay the jizya. Absolutely. And not just that. You have to also obey Sharia. You have to follow the Sharia law, which means there's no evangelization or we kill you. You can't have public processions. You can't go. Are you kidding? Christians have never been contained within their churches. We worship in the churches, but then we take the gospel message out to the world. We walk out singing Christ is risen, and we carry crosses and banners with Jesus glorified on them. This is how we do things. And to be told by the Muslims, you can't do that, you can't ring bells.
Okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. As I stated already, in Jerusalem specifically, under Muslim rule, Jews and Christians and Muslims lived peacefully side by side. However, you cannot say the same thing about Christian nations. Look into Christian nations. Look into Spain after the Reconquista. Before that, Muslims, Christians, Jews, they lived peacefully together. After the Reconquista, what happened? The Jews and the Muslims got kicked out. You had to convert. There was forced conversion. However, in Islam, you have no compulsion in religion, and therefore conversion is not being forced. Matter of fact, I come from the Balkan, and on the Balkan for 500 years, the Ottoman Empire was ruling. There was no suppression in religion. Quite the opposite. It's quite fascinating. Before the Ottoman Empire, you had already a proto-nationalism, if you will. And my people, the Northern Macedonian people, back then identified as Bulgarians, matter of fact. But during the time of the Ottomans, they started to identify more and more with their own religion, meaning they identified as Orthodox Christians. And all the churches that are still intact to this very day are a testament to that, of course. You simply can go to Ohrid and you will see 365 Orthodox churches. So therefore, religious freedom was always practiced under Sharia, under Muslim rule. However, the same cannot be said for Christian rule. Quite the opposite. The real oppressors in history have always been Christians. The forced conversions, not only in Spain, as I mentioned, but of course in all of Latin America through the Spaniards yet again. What happened over there? The indigenous people were forced to accept your cross.
You can't go on processions on Easter. This is our life. I'm sorry. Oh, that is the sorrow. And no Christians have suffered
He's so angry.
under Islam more than the Orthodox. So whatever Westerners think they know, ask us.
You are a
Ask
Westerner.
us.
Then.
We have
What are you talking
long
about?
lists of martyrs. Long lists.
Okay, this is absolutely pathetic. So first and foremost, the guy is a Westerner anyways. I'm not a Westerner. I come from the Balkan, as I stated already. And therefore, I can definitely testify that the oppression of Orthodox Christianity under Ottoman rule is a myth. There was absolutely no incentive for Orthodox Christians to convert to Islam. Matter of fact, let's just be honest here. Especially in the later stages of the Ottoman Empire, this became much less about religion and much more about political power and dominance. Right, and under that umbrella, yes, there was a taxation, the jizya, that is true, and therefore those rulers, they had absolutely no interest at all to convert Christians to Islam because that would mean less taxation. So therefore, this is again about political power in the end. But anyways, this absolutely outrageous claim here that the Orthodox Christians suffered the most under Muslim rule. Listen, my guy, I'm from the Balkan, as I stated already multiple times here. On the Balkan, the Ottomans didn't destroy Christianity one bit, zero. However, when communism came, Christianity, Islam, all of it vanished from the peninsula in a matter of 50 years. Churches and mosques were shut down. All of a sudden, everybody was an atheist. And one more thing, man. You're talking about the Crusades. When the Western Christians went down to Jerusalem, they massacred the Muslims, the Jews, and the Orthodox Christians as well. Pathetic.
And not just 7th century martyrs.
He has no clue what he's talking about.
Century after century. They tried to take Constantinople in 717. If the Mother of God hadn't defended the city and slaughtered them, which she did, amazingly, they were so destroyed in 717
so
that they didn't
angry.
try again for 600 years. They wanted Constantinople from the beginning. They finally came back 1453, May 29th. They took Constantinople. So for us, that was like yesterday. It was like yesterday.
Yeah, so this is the absolute polytheism of Christianity, especially Orthodox Christianity and Catholic Christianity. And this is why I gladly dropped out and became an apostate, because this is just ridiculous. This man truly assumes that the Mother of God, destroyed the Muslims back then and defended Constantinople. Okay, so if this is the Mother of God, whatever that means, potentially now she must be more powerful than God because she is his mother, I guess. Where was she then when it became Istanbul? Why didn't she defend right then and right there? So this is absolutely ridiculous, but it's not even the point for me. The point is that he attributes that power to the mother of Jesus. So this verse, especially back in the day when I was still a Christian, was kind of weird. But anyways, let's read it. John 2:3-4. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus, Mary, said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." Yeah, so think about this as you will, but hearing the words of Jesus, the way that he addresses his own mother, he simply calls her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me?" Basically downplaying her position, but somehow the Christians see her as the mother of God. Beats me.
And what he was referring to was the Fourth Crusade in 1204. The Crusaders got distracted because, as I was describing, right, there's three parties in the Crusades: the Muslims, the Orthodox. We were involved in the First Crusade and the First Crusade only. When our emperor, Alexius Comnenus, an unbelievable emperor, an incredible man, participated and welcomed the Westerners to help get the...
It's so funny, man, this double standard yet again, right? When it comes down to this emperor, an incredible man, he loves him, right? He's getting so happy about this. So this guy was a conqueror, right? But when it comes down to Muslims conquering, oh, evil, evil Islam.
Muslims out. It went very bad.
Hilarious.
From that moment on, we don't want anything to do with these crusades.
You got
The
beat.
fourth was so bad that the Western soldiers, on their way supposedly to deliver us from Islam, got distracted and literally attacked Constantinople, murdered our bishops and priests, our nuns on our altars,
Yeah.
and took over the city from 1204 to 1261. Put in Latin bishops, Latin leaders. I mean, we've never forgotten that. We've never forgotten that. So when the Pope said, "Hey, I want to come before I die," and he said, "I apologize," they said, "Well, tell us more about that."
So that's why I was curious your perspective and you tying it into what is happening all over. They said in London, the #1 baby boy name was Muhammad.
Oh, yeah, that's not just London. That's throughout England.
Yeah.
And that's for years.
Yeah.
Not just for a year or two. That's years
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
There are very many positives, of course, and I'm certainly not trying to judge and be mean to Muslim people. But we do have strong things to say. You know, the earliest Christian commentary on Islam comes from St. John of Damascus, one of the great fathers of the church. He's the first one to write anything, theologically speaking, evaluating Islam. And he was very clear about what he said and called Muhammad Antichrist and Islam a heresy. He actually lists it as a heresy because of the Christian influence on Muhammad, and which is very evident in the Quran, both Orthodox Christian influence and also a heretical Christian influence, both in the Quran. But we've had a consistent witness to Muslims for 14 centuries.
Yeah, so first and foremost about the name Muhammad being the most popular one in Great Britain. This just goes to show that Muslims actually produce children and Christians do not, because still Muslims are a minority in Great Britain. So how can it then be that Muhammad is the most common name in Great Britain? It's very, very simple. Brits, Westerners, white people in general simply are not interested in producing children any longer. This is your own issue here. However, when it comes down to the claims of heresy, yeah, obviously a Christian church father would claim that anything that comes after Christianity is a heresy. But so do the Jews. For Jews, Christianity is a Jewish heresy. So you have to bring more evidence than a simple claim of heresy.
We still feel the same way today. There are many benefits for them in the West, though. Now many, many Muslims are becoming Christians all across the West, which is a great blessing for them. If they did that
Not
in
happening.
their hometown, they'd be killed.
No. I like to refer you to Pew Research. This is a pretty credible source after all. And here you can see globally, Christians and Buddhists experience the biggest losses via religious switching. And here you can see it is absolutely crazy that 17.1 people per 100, so 17%, leave Christianity and only 5.5% enter Christianity. So therefore you have a net change of minus 11.6%, and this is the biggest dropout rate through all the religions, followed by Buddhism with almost 10%. However, Islam has a growth of very little, admittedly, just 0.2%, but it is the only net positive religion on the planet today. So stop lying, please.
And you will be. I spent, when I was a young man, I spent a summer in Pakistan, mostly working with Christians. Christians were tolerated in Pakistan because if they threw all of the Christians out, they wouldn't have any doctors or nurses. The Christians ran all the hospitals. And I was part of a mission team
No
that was
Muslim doctors.
working with the Christians in the hospitals. And I remember sitting and having tea with a young man, maybe a year or two older than me. I was 19 at the time. I think he was 21. He and his wife had converted to Christianity and thought it would be a loving and irresponsible thing to do to tell his father and his mom. So he sat down at dinner. His dad stood up, went out into the shed and got a pickaxe and came and tried to kill on the spot.
My goodness.
And it had been a year or two since he saw his parents, and he said, I'll never be able to see my parents again.
That's awesome.
My dad will kill on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
wow.
That's that was just normal Pakistani.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's take an anecdote from Pakistan. Hey, I knew a guy and he converted to Christianity and his father tried to kill him. Man, you can always tell such a story about Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Muslims. You have all kinds of radical people and they react in a certain way. When I converted to Islam, my family disowned me and didn't speak with me for 2 years straight. This happened in this modern day and age. What would have happened if I have done it back in the day? They told me as well on the Balkan that I am a traitor and that I deserve death. So it goes both ways, but yet again, this double standard with Christians, unreal. Alright guys, and this is it for today's video. I'm going to cut it off here. Enough has been said and I gave you my commentary. Ultimately, it's always boo-hoo, boo-hoo, bad, evil Islam, conquering war, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Christians persecuted, Christians so smart, the West is being taken over by Muslims, boo-hoo, we don't produce children, yada yada yada. It is always the same, no argument has been given, no quotations of any Islamic sources at all. Muhammad conquered Christians and Jews. No evidence whatsoever. As I listed already, as I stated, be it Jerusalem or the Balkans, Christians were able to practice, Jews were able to practice, Muslims had the rule and were obviously able to practice. They were living peacefully for many hundred years until Christian rule came. Matter of fact, as I stated, when the Crusades started, this is when the massacres began. And yes, Orthodox Christians were massacred as well. On the Balkan, on the other hand, when the Ottoman rule was dissolved, what happened next? War after war after war. World War I, World War II, communism. It has been a mess ever since. Honestly, to this very day, the Balkan is still a mess and hasn't recovered. It was way better off under Ottoman rule. Anyways, don't believe me, look it up yourself. But honestly, there is no point in speaking with such people. They're so heavily biased. You know, for me to leave Orthodox Christianity, I had to leave my biases aside and then give Islam an objective, fair shot. However, I kept that objectivism, thank God, throughout my life. I would always look at topics that I don't know about with a fresh perspective, give it the benefit of the doubt. But those militant Christians, they simply cannot. You know, even to this very day, if you present me a well-formulated argument for Christianity, why the Trinity is true, for example, why indeed the Trinity is revelation, where you can find it in the Bible, etc., etc., I am all ears. I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. However, there was not one Orthodox Christian that can give any evidence, any proof for it. Of course, there are many mentions. Yeah, well, the early Christians, some believed in the Trinity. Man, where is the clear-cut revelation? Where do we find it? In which text does it state that this came from Jesus? Jesus proclaimed, listen, O Israel, your Lord is 3 in 1. There is no such thing, and therefore it is a later invention, of course. But anyways, yet again, if you have any evidence, present it to me. I will convert back, revert to Orthodox Christianity if you give me the evidence. But there is nobody that can. It is always emotional appeals and character attacks on the Prophet. May peace be upon him. Anyways, guys, this is it. If you liked the video, leave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out the links in the description box below to further support my work. My new ebook is out, and we have The Gate as well, where the true supporters can help me in one of my greatest tests, but this is only for people that are really serious about helping out. This is not for everybody. Please don't join in if you don't want to help. Alright guys, but this is it. As always, may God bless you all. Much love and peace.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي